Discovering Iran's miraculous destiny, unveiling 40 shocking biblical truths, God's divine plan. In the 3rd year of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, besieged Jerusalem. The Israelites found themselves in a foreign land, their heritage dimmed like a flickering candle beneath the weight of a looming empire. As the winds of fate guided young Esther into the grandeur of Shushan, her heart held echoes of the promises made to her ancestors. She was a beautiful young Jewish woman, an orphan raised by her cousin Mordecai, steeped in courage and faith even amidst the dazzling trappings of a Persian palace that celebrated everything contrary to her faith. One fateful day, an edict was proclaimed, an extraordinary contest to find a new queen to replace Vashti. The beauty of maidens was to be measured against the glittering standards of the king, and Esther found herself swept into the opulence of royal chambers, adorned in silks rich as a king's treasury. Every inch of her attire whispered her lineage, yet Mordecai's wise counsel resounded in her mind: conceal your heritage, protect your people. As Esther acclimated to the splendor, a malevolent shadow emerged in the form of Haman, a man whose heart burned with hatred towards the Jews. With a chilling decree, he sought to annihilate her people, planting seeds of despair. The news spread like wildfire, igniting fear and dread in the hearts of God's chosen ones. Esther quaked within her elegant clothing, wrestling with a tumult that echoed through her very being. Could a mere girl adorned in crowns confront such an evil? She had risen to the throne yet felt the weight of a nation on her shoulders. Mordecai's voice, filled with urgency, pierced through the silence, for if you keep silent at this time, relief and deliverance will arise for the Jews from another place, but you and your father's house will perish. His challenge ignited Esther's spirit. This was her moment, a test of faith and identity. Her prayer became her armor, an invincible force that she donned while fasting in humility and seeking the favor of the God of Israel. As the appointed day approached, trepidation gripped her heart, and with each echoing step toward the throne room, the weight of her mission intensified. Clad in royal garments, she took a deep breath, her courage threading through her fearful flesh like the fabric of her royal robe. The king gazed at her, his powerful presence commanding silence, tension crackling in the air. Would she dare to reveal her truth? Would her voice rise above the shadow cast by Haman? The court held its breath, all eyes upon her as the moment of revelation loomed before her. Each heartbeat was a whisper of prayer, each pause a plea for divine intervention. Would the God of Israel intervene yet again, or would this moment seal the fate of her people forever? Before we continue with this incredible biblical account, I want to make sure you don't miss any of these powerful scripture stories. Click the bell icon and select all notifications. These biblical narratives have transformed countless lives throughout history. If God's word through this story is blessing you, please like and share with someone who needs to hear about God's faithfulness today. Tell me in the comments, which biblical story has most impacted your faith journey? I'm always amazed how God's word speaks to hearts across generations. Now let's continue with what the Lord did next. In that moment of silence, Esther's heart stood firm. Though fear whispered to her spirit, she remembered the promises that the eternal God had woven through her lineage. She drew strength from the ancient stories, from the God who had delivered Israel countless times. What would her obedience usher into the world? Would her voice be the clarion call for salvation, or the final lament for her people? As she prepared to speak, she stood at the precipice of destiny, where the miraculous and the mundane intertwined in God's sovereign plan. Her identity must be unveiled, her faith must be activated. What awaited her next, and what divine tapestry would be woven through her courage? As Esther stood before King Ahasuerus, the weight of her people's fate rested like a heavy mantle upon her shoulders. The silence stretched, each heartbeat echoing the urgency of her moment. She instinctively placed her hand upon her breast, drawing courage from the depths of her faith. Her mind turned toward the God of her ancestors, the one who had brought forth deliverance time and again for Israel. Ahasuerus, king, she spoke, her voice a blend of reverence and resolve. If it pleases you, grant me but a moment, and allow me to implore you for my life, and the lives of my people. For against us, a plot has been devised by Haman, the Agagite, a plot wrought with malicious intent to slay and to destroy us. Gasps erupted among the gathered nobles, their faces a tapestry of shock and disbelief. In that moment, the king's brow furrowed in dark contemplation, the gleam of righteousness flickering to life as recognition dawned. His strong gaze fixed upon her, piercing through the veil of luxury that surrounded them, seeking the truth embedded in her words. "Who is he, and where is he, that dares to presume such a thing?" the king demanded, fury rising within him, like a storm cloud swelling with power. Esther, feeling the swell of hope invigorate her spirit, continued, "This adversary, my lord, this foe, is indeed wicked. He is Haman, your trusted adviser, who has devised this evil against my people because of my lineage as a Jew. In blindness and hatred, he has sought to blot us out, as if we were but shadows upon the earth." The king's rage ignited, piercing the silence that had just moments ago ensnared the court. "Bring Haman," he commanded, and his words reverberated off the walls like a clarion call for justice. All present understood the critical hour that was unfolding. Haman was summoned, and as he entered, the light of the royal court dimmed under the weight of impending doom. His heart raced, thrumming inside his chest as it became clear that the queen's plea was for the very lives of those whom he sought to destroy. Faced with the virtuous Esther and enraged Ahasuerus, the plot he had crafted now turned upon him. In the heightened tension of that moment, Haman found himself trembling, his voice faltering as he attempted to devise a defense. "My lord, I meant not to harm your queen. It was the animosity that arose against the Jews that clouded my judgment." Yet before he could weave a tale or flatter the king, the judgment was upon him. The king, furious and betrayed, turned to his guards, and his edict followed swiftly: "Let Haman be hanged upon the gallows he fashioned for Mordecai, the gatekeeper." The royal decree painted a swift and dark turn of fate. The very malice Haman had sown would be his undoing. The weight of darkness lifted, and as Haman was taken away, a new dawn began to break over the kingdom. Esther, filled with a profound sense of victory tempered by the depth of the grave situation her people still faced, fell to her knees. She lifted her hands heavenward, tears cascading down her cheeks, not of sorrow but of thankfulness. Her people had been spared for the moment, yet still, the decree to annihilate the Jews remained in effect, bound by the laws of the Medes and Persians, but what she knew, anchored her spirit: God's purpose was unshakable. The struggle was far from over. A whisper echoed in her heart, a remembrance of Mordecai's words: "Relief will arise from another place." What would that mean for her people? What further call to action was set before her? As she prepared to advocate for her people again before the king, Esther realized the stage was being set for a divine revelation that would echo through generations to come. Indeed, the hand of the Almighty was at work. The world was not yet ready to witness the full measure of His sovereign plan. What deliverance awaited them still? And how would the destiny of Israel intertwine with that of Persia's crown? As the sun dipped low over the kingdom, casting its golden hue across the palace, Esther rose from her prayers, a resolute spark igniting within her spirit. The reality of the moment pressed heavily upon her, a bittersweet tension tangled with hope and despair. How could she ask for more, when her people still dwelt under the shadow of a decree that loomed mercilessly over them? The thoughts of annihilation whispered threats that pierced her heart. Draped in the fine garments of the queen, she understood that her role was not merely to occupy a throne of beauty and privilege; her calling was far greater. She pondered the wisdom of Mordecai and the divine hand that had placed her in that very position. Ezekiel's prophecy echoed in her mind, for she perceived herself as a vessel through which God could realize His promise to His chosen people. Before embarking once more into the king's presence, Esther summoned the courage to call upon the spirits of the ancestors, those who had walked this path before her. "God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob," she breathed, "grant me grace and the wisdom of Solomon as I seek to turn the heart of Ahasuerus, the king, toward justice for our people." Gathering her thoughts, Esther knew her approach would require both prudence and fervent supplication. She had to appeal to Ahasuerus in a manner whereby he could not refuse. Esther awaited the king's summons, her heart a vessel of turbulence, reflecting the turmoil of her people. In the great hall, the court awaited her, a sea of eyes glinting with curiosity and concern. At the sound of the king's voice, commanding attention, she entered, her heart racing with the rhythm of destiny itself. "What is your request, Queen Esther?" "It shall be granted, up to half my kingdom," Ahasuerus proclaimed, his voice echoing with authority across the chamber. "My lord," Esther began, her voice unwavering, yet tinged with urgency. "If I have found favor in your sight, let my life be granted to me and my people. For we have been sold to be destroyed, to be slain, and to be annihilated. Had we been sold merely as slaves, I would have remained silent, for our affliction is too great to bear." The king's expression shifted, his brow furrowing deeply. "Who is he, and where is he, that has dared to do such a thing?" His eyes burned with indignation, as if a storm of wrath stirred within. In that weighty instant, the truth erupted from Esther's lips, like fire released from a forge. A foe and an enemy, this wicked Haman. In disbelief, Ahasuerus turned toward Haman, who was standing in abject horror, feebly attempting to absorb the gravity of his imminent downfall. The king ordered the guards, "Bind him and take him outside. The gallows await." As Haman was led away, a solemn hush fell upon the court. Esther stood before the king, knowing well that the scales had tipped in her favor, yet the decree still stood. The reality that they had yet to unravel the binding decree unleashed a profound air of tension. Would Haman's demise suffice to restore their lives? Esther, her mind swirling with the implications of her newfound influence, recognized the weight of her role. She turned to the king once more, a resolve manifesting in her presence. "Yet, my king, a decree written cannot simply be cast aside. Another edict must be made to ensure our deliverance, lest the darkness of the past lie heavy upon us." The king surveyed her, understanding the depths of her plea as one who had come alive in that pivotal moment. Esther's heart beat as one with God's purpose, igniting something greater than herself, a desire to intervene with divine authority, and in the midst of this terrible conflict, the very heart of providence laid a plan that only the Almighty could orchestrate, a whisper in the depth of time awaiting its revelation. What would be the path of deliverance? And how would Esther's voice, one among many, extend beyond the walls of the palace, weaving together a tapestry of hope that would echo through the annals of history? The contours of destiny were shifting, preparing to unveil God's sovereign purpose in ways unimaginable. And the king, his voice trembling with authority yet softened by righteous anger, answered Esther, "What shall be done for this people? Speak, and I will write a new decree, for no evil shall remain unpunished in my kingdom." The earnestness of his intention flowed through the hall, captivating all who heard. Esther took a deep breath, her heart lifted by the flicker of hope now igniting in the shadows of despair. "O king, allow the decree to proclaim our right to defend ourselves. Let it be known throughout your provinces that on the 13th day of the month of Adar, my people shall rise against those who conspire against us." Her words rang with the weight of faith, a lifeline extended to those who remained vulnerable. As the court reverberated with murmurs of astonishment, Ahasuerus' hand moved quickly, inscribing upon the scrolls the new edict. "By the power vested in me," he declared, "the Jews shall be allowed to gather and to defend themselves. A new decree is written, and it shall not be overturned." Mordecai, who had heard the news, rushed into the palace like a wind of change. Clad in sackcloth and ashes, he sought audience with Esther. "The king has granted us permission. The hand of God has not forsaken his people," he proclaimed, his voice a thunderous pulse of faith. The air thickened with the anticipation of divine intervention. "We shall not perish, for our God is with us." Trust surged through Esther, and the burden of her people weighed fiercely upon her heart. "Yet we must gather, rallying our kin, that none should falter, that none should tremble, for it is for such a time as this that we were brought into such a place." That night, Esther and Mordecai summoned the leaders of the Jewish people scattered across the provinces, sending forth messengers on swift steeds. "Let it be known that we shall stand firm in the face of adversity. For our God has spoken, and his promise shall sustain us," they declared as they conveyed the new decree. As hope began to spread among the people like branches flourishing in spring, Esther recalled the words of Isaiah, "When you pass through the waters, I will be with you, and through the rivers, they shall not overflow you." Isaiah 43 verse 2. Her heart rejoiced in this unshakable truth, knowing that they were not alone in their path. Then, as the days drew closer to the date of the confrontation, faith intertwined with urgency, prayers ascended like incense filling the holy place. Each family kindled their hope anew, whispering prayers and proclamations of courage. They gathered in assembly, fortified by the promise that the God of their fathers would protect them, yet unknown to Esther, a deeper scheme was in motion, for the king's heart, once stirred by ire toward Haman's betrayal, now mirrored the providence of God, drawing others into this divine tapestry. The decree to defend was more than a mere proclamation, it was a rumble of the Father's orchestrated deliverance, echoing through the course of history. Would this be the moment in time where the tides turned forever for God's chosen? Would the faithful rise to grasp the victory already promised? Thus, even as Esther basked in the light of impending victory, the shadow of a greater battle loomed. The final threads of history were being woven, preparing to reveal a greater mystery. A story larger than their own struggles was being crafted by the hands of the Almighty, whose plans extend beyond individual hope, reaching toward the ultimate redemption. What glorious triumphs and 12 tribes of Israel's restored destinies awaited! In the sacred silence of heaven, the answer hovered in divine anticipation, inviting all to witness the unfolding of God's sovereign plan. As the appointed day of Adar approached, a mingled air of fervor and trepidation lingered over the land. In every corner of the provinces, the echo of the king's decree resounded in the hearts of the Jewish people like the sound of a trumpet calling them to battle. They gathered with resolute spirits, clad not only in armor but in faith, for victory belonged to those who trust in the Lord. In the quiet stillness of the night, Mordecai found himself wandering the streets, his heart heavy yet hopeful. "Who knows," he whispered, "if perhaps we have come to the kingdom for such a time as this." There was a gravity in his words, a recognition of the divine hand that had led Esther to her position, and of the collective destiny resting upon their shoulders. He prayed earnestly, beseeching the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob to grant his people favor in the sight of the king and protection in the battle to come. Esther, too, was not idle. She led her household in prayer and supplication, her faith a beacon in the dimness of uncertainty. "O Lord God, let not our enemies prevail against us. Turn their wicked plans into folly," she cried, her voice a symphony of devotion echoing through the walls of the palace. In her heart, she petitioned for strength, not merely for the conflict ahead, but for the courage to bring deliverance to her people. Meanwhile, across the land, word flowed like a river, filling the hearts of the Jews with courage. Families who had feared for their lives began to bond in unity, pledging to stand together in the face of the impending storm. Joined as one, they spoke in unison, drawing from the ancient words of their sacred texts, proclaiming, "If God is for us, who can be against us?" Romans 8 verse 31. Yet deep within the corridors of the royal palace, Haman stirred, his heart consumed by wrath. The ire of a wicked man had been restrained, but now it began to bubble anew, driven by the very decree that sought to protect the innocent. "Let it not be so," he snarled, a dark determination settling upon him. "I will have my vengeance. I will see them scattered like chaff before the wind." The plotting of Haman became a covert assault, veiled in malice, yet to the discerning eye, the providence of God shone like a lighthouse through the tumult. Even now, he was working behind the scenes, orchestrating events that would culminate in salvation. As the day of battle dawned, a collective gasp tore through the air when the trumpet of the king signaled the beginning of their stand. The Jews assembled in the streets, their hearts thundering as they raised their weapons, united in purpose. "We shall not be silenced. We shall not fall." Their voices rose like a mighty chorus, echoing the promise found in Psalm 46 verse 1, "God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble." Esther, adorned in royal garments, stood at the forefront, emboldened by the Spirit of the Lord. She addressed the multitude, her voice firm yet tender. "Stand strong, my people. For we fight not just for our lives, but for our legacy, for our covenant with the Almighty. For it is He who has set us this day." And lo, the time had come for the confrontation, and as the clash of steel began to ring through the air, a hush fell upon the heavens. The preparations of the Lord were unfolding, unbeknownst to those who schemed against His anointed, and amidst the chaos, the fragile thread connecting the past with the promise of the future was being drawn taut. But as the dust of battle swirled, would they grasp the victory, or would Haman's dark heart prevail? In the mystery of God's grand design, a revelation lingered just beyond the horizon of time, waiting to unveil his plan that could change the course of history forever. What secret did the Almighty hold within the folds of destiny yet untold? Only in faith would they discover the depths of his wondrous purpose. As the clash of arms echoed through the streets, a divine tension permeated the air, thickening with every swing of the sword and every shout of defiance. The Jewish warriors, fueled by courage and the promise of deliverance, stood as a testament to the steadfastness of their faith. Their hearts beat in unison, drawing strength from the words spoken by Esther, "For it is he who has set us this day." In the midst of the turmoil, Mordecai took his place among the people, his heart a furnace of unyielding hope. He raised his hands to the heavens, reminding all who would listen, "Brothers and sisters, remember the words of our forefathers. The Lord has said, when you go to war against your enemies you shall not fear them, for the Lord your God is with you." Deuteronomy 20 verse 1. With each fierce engagement, the reality of their plight weighed heavily upon them. They fought not merely for survival, they contended for their identity, the essence of Yahweh's covenant people. But despair threatened to loom as losses began to mount. Yet in this hour of darkness, God's promises flickered like a candle fighting against the wind. From the palace, Esther watched the battles unfold, her heart tormented by the sight of bloodshed. As she prayed quietly, there came a beckoning sense that wisdom would soon be revealed to her. "Lord, grant me understanding," she whispered, "for your plans are higher than mine." Just then, her eyes were drawn to the shimmering banners of victory that began to surface among her people. Some engaged in fierce combat, while others wielded their distinct weapon. Their prayers ascended as a fragrant offering before the throne of God. Meanwhile, Haman's darkness swirled with fateful intensity. He paced the chamber in desperation, filled with anger and blinded by hatred. "Let them not have peace," he roared, planning strategies against a people he deemed insignificant. How can one rebellious edict wield such resilience? His fury heightened, but unbeknownst to him, a divine counterplot was taking shape. On the field, no longer merely an observer, Mordecai urged the warriors, "Stand firm. Look to the Lord, our shield and fortress. He will deliver us from our foes." He invoked remembrance among the men, reflecting on the exodus from Egypt, "For the Lord has brought us out with a mighty hand, and he will fight for us again." Exodus 14 verse 14. Then came a pivotal moment, an unexpected victory over Haman's forces. A wave of strength surged through the Jewish ranks as they began to turn the tide. The favor of the Most High was evident. Confusion fell upon Haman's men, for they saw their numbers dwindling, and their will to fight began to falter. Yet, there was still a secret hidden within God's sovereign plan, one that Esther had yet to fully comprehend. As she stood at the city gate, ebbing with anticipation, she sensed the Spirit whispering to her heart, "Courage cannot be cultivated in quietude, it is birthed in the storm." At that moment, a warrior ran forth, his face alight with the glow of fervent victory. "The enemy falters. We are prevailing." His shout was like the sound of trumpets announcing triumph. The day of destiny had dawned like no other, unfolding layer by layer, and in the hearts of the faithful, hope blossomed anew. But as the tastes of victory began to fill the air, the stillness of the heavens reminded them, the struggle was not over. They knew not what awaited them past this day, nor how the hand of God was still writing their story. Little did they know that the revelatory threads of divine providence were being woven together, each moment, each prayer, and each battle cry leading up to a climax that would reverberate through generations. What further surprise did the Lord hold in his hands, as the time approached when all would be revealed? Only in his perfect faithfulness would they find the answers to the cries of their hearts and the unfolding of their divine destiny. As the sun dipped low beneath the horizon, casting a golden hue over the battlefield, the fervor of the conflict began to subside. Those who had fought valiantly now sought shelter from the pain and fatigue that gripped their weary bodies. Yet the echoes of victory resonated in their hearts, lifting their spirits as they remembered the words of Moses, "The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still." Exodus 14 verse 14. Mordecai, his face smeared with sweat and grime, stood with his brethren, urging them to gather. "Brothers," he called, his voice steady amidst the settling dust, "the Lord has given us this day, and though we have faced great turmoil, he is not finished with us yet. We must remain vigilant and unite. The Jewish warriors, emboldened by the day's triumph, began to converge around Mordecai, their eyes bright with hope. Whispers of renewed strength filled the air, for they had witnessed God's hand in their deliverance. Yet amidst their celebration, Esther felt a stillness within her soul, a whisper that urged her to move. Prompted by a deep sense of responsibility, she descended the steps of the palace, weaving through the ranks of soldiers still catching their breath. She sought out Mordecai, who noticed her approach with a mixture of apprehension and pride. "Esther," he exclaimed, "the Lord has used you as the vessel of our hope." "Indeed, but one battle does not secure our future," she replied, her brow furrowed with concern. Esther looked towards the remains of the field where chaos had reigned only moments before. "There is still much to uncover, for in our victory, shadows may still loom." Mordecai nodded, sensing the weight of her words. "Then we shall seek the Lord's guidance together, for he is our beacon." They clasped hands, invoking a prayer for wisdom over their people. "God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, illuminate our path and reveal your sovereign will." In the coming hours, as the moon adorned the night sky, the remaining warriors shared stories of valor, their voices rising like an anthem of faith. Yet a sullen figure lurked in their midst, Haman, heart full of wrath and vengeance. The tide of his own defeat twisted in his heart, and he sat plotting in the shadows, devising schemes anew. "Let them celebrate," he sneered to himself, "for I will not allow this to stand. My wrath shall not be quenched." With a determined heart, Esther gathered her closest confidants. "We must prepare, our victory is but a precursor, much lies ahead." A solemn agreement filled the air, and they pledged to seek the truth and protect their people. As dawn broke, bringing light to the bruised land, an emissary arrived from the distant king's palace. Bearing ominous news, he approached Esther and Mordecai, his voice laden with urgency. "A decree has been sent. Haman has not yet relinquished his wicked designs. The plot thickens, and the enemy lurks still." Heavy with apprehension, Esther's heart raced, for she understood that their respite was merely a veil over trouble that sought to ensnare them once more. "We are but vessels of the Most High," she proclaimed, "and the time has come to act swiftly and decisively." Word spread like wildfire among the Jewish people. As they prepared for the trials to come, they drew upon their covenant with God, trusting that just as he had delivered them before, he would once again provide a way. "Let them gather," Mordecai proclaimed, rallying the people. "For the Lord has not forgotten his promise. He is faithful and true, even in the face of darkness." As their voices united in prayer, the heavens seemed to respond, waiting, watching. Little did they know, the next revelation of God's sovereign purpose was on the horizon, ready to unfold in a manner that would ignite their faith anew. What divine turn awaited them, as the tapestry of God's plan continued to weave through the chaos of their existence? The journey was far from over, and in the depths of their crisis, a profound truth awaited its unveiling. As the sun bathed the land in tender light once more, the Jewish people gathered at the town square, their hearts heavy yet resolute. Esther stood before them, a crown upon her head yet humbled by the weight of her purpose. "Hear me, O people of Israel!" she called, her voice rising above the murmurs of concern. "Though the night is dark, the dawn of our deliverance draws near. We are not forsaken, our God is with us." Mordecai, her steadfast uncle, stood by her side, lifting his hand in solemn acknowledgement of the gathering. "It is written," he began, recalling the words of the prophets, "and it shall be that whoever calls on the name of the Lord shall be saved." Joel 2 verse 32. "Let us call upon him now, for our future is at stake." With fervent hearts, they joined hands as one, their voices rising in united prayer, beseeching the Almighty. "Lord God of hosts," they cried, "we humble ourselves before you. Deliver us from the evil that encircles us, and grant us the wisdom to move forward with courage." In the shadows, Haman, like a serpent poised to strike, watched with malevolent resolve. His heart burned with hatred for the people of Israel, and he took counsel from the depths of despair, engendering new schemes against them. "In their weakness, I will find strength," he vowed, a chilling desire reflecting in his eyes. "With the king's decree in my hand, I shall bring ruin upon them. Days turned to nights, and the urgency of the hour grew. Esther's heart was tormented by the burden of her people. What must I do? She pondered in prayer, seeking a divine answer. That night, the Lord, in his infinite wisdom, revealed to her the time was ripe for courage and action. She felt the stirrings of the Spirit, whispering softly, for such a time as this, Esther 4 verse 14, determined, she summoned her courage and prepared a banquet, inviting King Ahasuerus and Haman. This banquet, she said to her confidants, will be my opportunity to reveal the truth, to shine a light upon Haman's treachery. She knew that at this table, the fate of her people could hinge upon her words. As they gathered for the feast, the tension in the air grew thick with anticipation. Esther poured out the wine, offering it to the king as she prayed silently for divine intervention. Lord, let today be the day when your justice is revealed. Let my voice echo in the chambers of the heart. With eyes fixed on her, King Ahasuerus welcomed her with favor. What is your desire, Queen Esther? He inquired, eager yet unaware of the peril his kingdom faced. Tonight, she began, her voice steady despite the turmoil within, I have prepared this feast to expose the wickedness that seeks to destroy my people, the Jews. If I have found favor in your sight, O King, spare us from the plots of the villain who sits amongst us. A sharp intake of breath filled the room, eyes widened as the truth spilled from her lips. Haman's heart raced, for he knew the misdeeds to which Esther referred were indeed of his own making. The fury of the king ignited in that moment, a righteous anger that would not be contained. The unseen hand of God moved through the hearts of all present, orchestrating a deliverance that no one could have foreseen. The king, rising from his seat in rage, turned his gaze upon Haman, uncovering the plot that rested like a shadow over Israel, but little did they know, the true revelation of God's plan extended beyond the imminent threat. For in the upheaval of their circumstances, God's providence was about to weave an eternal legacy, one that would resonate through generations and point towards a greater salvation awaiting all humanity. What divine mystery lay in store as they dared to step into the light of his purpose? The culmination of their story was not merely about temporal triumph, but a testament to his grace leading towards an everlasting promise. In the midst of the king's wrath, the clamor of the court hung heavy like a storm cloud suspended over the banquet hall. Esther's heart quickened as she beheld the king's fierce expression. O Lord, she whispered under her breath, let thy will be manifest. The mood shifted, and a tremor ran through the gathered nobles, each one awaiting the king's command. Haman, sensing the sudden turn, stood frozen, a pale shadow of his former arrogant self. The king's voice thundered forth, what deeds have you wrought, Haman? Speak. The walls echoed with a foreboding silence as Haman stammered, desperation gripping his voice. My king, I sought only the good of your kingdom. The Jews are a people scattered, whose laws differ from ours. I only wish to protect you from their treachery. Esther pressed her lips together, determined not to be swayed by the man's deceitful rhythm. My lord, he twists his words like a serpent. It is he who has plotted destruction against my people, and it is he who seeks their downfall. Aghast, the king turned to Haman, his eyes aglow with righteous fury. You would conspire against the queen. Who was it that gave you the authority to decree the annihilation of innocent lives? With a heavy heart, Esther nodded toward the scroll bearing Haman's seal, a decree written in arrogance and cruelty. This is his work, O king. It bears witness to the sinister intent of his heart. As the truth filled the air like smoke, Mordecai watched intently from the shadows. His prayers hovered like incense before the Almighty, each plea interlaced with faith that the God of Israel would not let his people perish. Suddenly, the king's countenance was hard as stone. Seize him. Let Haman face the consequences of his wickedness. The guards moved quickly, seizing Haman and dragging him away. Unrestrained joy mingled with disbelief erupted among the gathered assembly, yet a thick tension remained, echoing the gravity of what had befallen them. Esther stood tall, her eyes fixed upon the king. If it pleases your majesty, she ventured, let me implore you to counter the decree that has been sent forth in haste. Let us not serve as a vessel of discord, instead, let us pursue peace. Ahasuerus considered her words, contemplating the justice befitting their plight. So it shall be, he declared with resolution. That which is just must prevail. Haman's plans will be a mere shadow against the light of truth. Yet as they rejoiced in the triumph of justice over malice, the night was far from over. The unseen hand of providence continued to weave its intricate tapestry. The king summoned his advisers, seeking wisdom for the future of the Jewish people in his land, and Esther, still tinged with fear yet brimming with divine purpose, stepped forward once again. Your Majesty, allow us to deliver the hope of our people. As she spoke of salvation and a path of restoration, the seeds of an unexpected destiny began to take root. Little did they grasp that this moment mirrored a promise which transcended their days. For within the midst of their turmoil, God had set in motion a plan for generations yet to come, foreshadowing the lineage of a Savior who would one day arise from the house of Judah, a light to all nations and a hope for every heart. What revelations awaited, as the unfolding chapters of Esther's destiny were not merely her own, but also intertwined with the greater narrative of divine redemption. Would they see the full splendor of God's everlasting covenant? The tapestry continued to unravel, yet the deepest mysteries lay just ahead, aflame with promise. In the aftermath of Esther's courageous revelation, a new chapter stirred in the hearts of the Jewish people. As the dawn broke bright over Shushan, a resounding hope echoed through the land. The king's decree had shifted the tides, but deliverance was not yet fully realized. Esther understood that the power of her voice had begun a journey. Now it was time to witness the fruits of faith that could spring from this moment. The assembly of Jews rejoiced, their spirits ignited by the warmth of promises fulfilled. They gathered once more in prayer, thanking the Lord for his protection and guidance. Esther stood among them, her heart swelling as she watched families embrace, tears of relief mingling with shouts of victory. Behold, she proclaimed, the Lord has fought for us and continues to fight. Let our hearts be steadfast, for today we begin a new legacy, a legacy that will shine through generations. As word spread of Haman's doom, the cities beyond Shushan echoed with relief. From every corner of the kingdom, the Jewish people rallied, emboldened by the decree that allowed them not just to survive but to boldly act against their foes. The 13th day of Adar loomed near, where they would rise united to defend their lives. In the palace, the king deliberated with his advisers, considering that which must be done to replace Haman's foul decree. The wicked man's wrath had been quelled, yet the first edict still loomed. We shall issue a decree of empowerment, Ahasuerus proclaimed, his voice resolute. Let it be known that on the 13th of Adar, the Jews shall defend themselves, and whoever would dare lay hands against them shall face the judgment of the crown. Esther felt the mounting urgency blend with divine assurance. She turned to Mordecai, who stood resolute beside her. Our people shall not only defend their lives but shall do so with the valor of our ancestors, he declared. They shall stand together like towers against wickedness, restored in purpose. Days of fervent prayer passed, and with each moment of spiritual preparation, the hearts of the people united in a fierce hope. Families gathered materials, fortifying their homes and souls with resolve. Esther, endeavoring to guide them, initiated preparations for feasts of remembrance and gratitude, teaching them of their heritage and the miracles of God's hand throughout history. On the eve of battle, Esther knelt in solemn reflection. O Lord, she whispered, you have brought me here, but this is not my story alone. Let my life serve as a vessel that magnifies your glory. Use this moment to unveil your promise to your people. A peace washed over her, the kind that comes only from the presence of the Almighty. On the fateful day, the sun rose brilliantly, casting light upon the land as though heaven itself celebrated their stand. The cries of battle rang out, but amidst the joyful shout of "Who is like our God?" resounded strength and gratitude. The Jewish warriors took their positions, courage pulsating through their veins like the beating of drums, echoing the history of victories won by the hand of God. As the clash of swords resounded, the Spirit moved amongst them. Though they faced a fierce opposition, the strength of their unity elevated their resolve. The Lord is our refuge and strength. Mordecai bellowed, encouraging all to keep their eyes fixed on the promise of deliverance. He will fight for us. Battle raged, yet confusion swept through the ranks of their enemies. The tide of war turned, as God's favor descended upon his people. As the sun began to set, an unusual calm fell over the tumult. In their despair, Haman's remaining allies faltered under the light of divine deliverance as hope unfolded like petals of a blooming flower. When victory was declared, exhilarating triumph swept through the land. Esther stood at the forefront, tears of gratitude streaming down her face. She raised her hands toward heaven, and the people echoed her praise. "Let us remember this day," she declared, "that it is our God alone who preserves and protects. We are a people redeemed." Esther's legacy would be eternal, inscribed not just in royal annals but written in the hearts of generations. The festival of Purim was established, a day of feasting and reflection on the faithfulness of a God who answers prayers and defends his people. Years later, the story of Esther would echo through time, a testament to divine intervention and unyielding faith. Little did they know that this narrative was woven in the tapestry of God's redemptive plan, a shadow of the greater salvation to come. And so, dear friends, as we reflect upon the powerful themes of courage, faith, and God's unwavering protection, we are called to be lights in our world, never faltering in the face of adversity. Let us carry forth the message of hope that transcends time. Now is the time to act. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next powerful biblical stories that inspire faith and ignite hope. Leave a like now to help spread God's word through the algorithm that reaches hearts. Comment your spiritual reflections on Esther's journey and how this biblical story has impacted your faith. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to hear God's truth, for we are called to be witnesses to his goodness. Don't wait even one more second to share this powerful testimony of faith and salvation.